in a pandemic and grant right.
Okay, fine. So let me wait for the speaker. If he is set, then we can start. I think we are 17 already, and it is 5 minutes past 10.
Yes, I'm online and I'm ready.
Oh, okay, fine. I think we are good to go. So first of all, I will ask the Dr. Ismail Odetokun to come in, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shitu. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Oh, great. Good morning, everybody. You are all welcome to the AfriScience Network monthly webinar. This is the 21st in the series of our webinars. Today, we have one of the lead admins of this platform, who is also an erudite scholar of international repute, that will be delivering today's talk. Before I will allow Dr. Shitu to give or to read the citation, I want to introduce the network to us. The AfriScience Network is a network that is established with the aims to promote innovative and multidisciplinary scientific research and development in Africa by bringing together a community of academia and those in the industry, as well as researchers who share similar goals. Our vibrant community is currently about 8,000 members strong, and we are growing every day. So this community provides unique platforms, especially on WhatsApp, A2H, for innovating and improving the quality of research and development outputs. We are also involved in facilitating collaborations among researchers and developers, and also providing opportunities for knowledge sharing and capacity building. The network's missions are critical given the challenges faced by African scientists and the potential impact of scientific research and development on the continent's socio-economic development. With the right support and resources, the AfriScience Network has the potential to transform Africa's research and development landscape and position the continent as a global hub for scientific excellence. So without much ado, I will invite Dr. Aminu Shitu to read the citation of today's speaker. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Aminu Shitu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ismail Odetokun, for an excellent introduction of the AfriScience Network. Today we have Folorunso Fasina with us, who is a Nigerian veterinarian that has spent a significant part of his working life in parts of Africa. He's well-traveled within and outside the continent. He previously worked at the Emergency Center for Transboundary Animal Diseases, ECTAD, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, as country team leader in Kenya and Tanzania between 2016 and 2023. He serves as an extraordinary professor at the University of Pretoria, South Africa, and worked as the One Health intelligence and early warning expert with FAO in Rome, Italy, until October 2024. He will be resuming as country team leader in another country in December. He holds a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and 2 PhDs in molecular and classical epidemiology from the University of Pretoria, South Africa, and the Utrecht University, the Netherlands, respectively, focusing on transboundary ASF and zoonotic diseases, HPAI, H5N1. His areas of interest include infectious disease epidemiology, health economics and disease ecology, and modeling using One Health approach. He has worked for over 21 years exploring zoonosis, antimicrobial resistance, and epidemiologic basis of transboundary animal diseases in Africa, and has published over 300 peer-reviewed papers in local and international journals, and led or contributed to 21 national and international technical reports. His H index is 39, and the I-10 index is 105 on Google Scholar, with over 5,226 citations. Fasina has supervised over 50 postgraduate students at various levels, internship, undergraduate, postgraduate, and postdoctoral, and has served as internal and external examiner on 19 master's and PhD thesis and dissertation. He was previously an editor-in-chief and remains editorial board member of selected journals. He has research networks in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. He has received various national and international awards. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that we welcome our distinguished speaker for the 21st webinar of the AfriScience Network, Professor Folorunso Oludayo Fasina. With his remarkable wealth of experience in both academia and mentorship, Professor Fasina stands as an exemplary figure, uniquely qualified to lead today's discussion on the vital topic, fostering excellence in supervisor-supervisee relationships, expectations, ethics, and mentorship in African academia. We strongly believe that his profound insights and dedication to advancing African academia make him the perfect choice for this session. We are deeply honored to have you with us, sir, and we warmly welcome you. Thank you very much. And before we move on, please, I would like to advise the audience to kindly switch off their cameras and also mute themselves, because the cameras are distracting. Yeah, thank you very much. And so you're welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm pleased first to be a member of this platform. At the same time, I'm also pleased to be given the opportunity to present this particular topic. Good morning, all. I want to acknowledge, I see some of my lecturers on the platform, some of those who mentored me also to become who I am today. I also see some of my peers are also here. And so thank you very much. I'll go straight into the topic of today, fostering excellence in supervisor-supervisee relationship, the expectations, the ethics, and the mentoring part, especially among African academia. Well, to start, you know, the issue of postgraduate is a journey and not a destination. You know, when you, as an African student, particularly, you are thinking of a postgraduate student, a postgraduate program, the first thing that comes to your mind are so many questions that you need to answer, either partially or not answered, and you keep those questions in your mind until the end of your program. And the success or failure of a postgraduate program depends on some of these questions. So I'll just run through a few of those questions, then we continue with our presentation. One, the first set of questions borders on academic and research concern. One, how do I select a relevant and impactful research topic? The student begin to worry about that. How can I access resources that I need for my research? What skill do I need to excel in my studies and research? How do I publish in reputable journals? Balancing coursework, research, and personal life is another issue. In terms of career and future planning, will my postgraduate qualification help me in securing a good job? And how will I be able to, should I pursue PhD immediately after if you are doing masters, or how do I transit into a workspace? Such a candidate may also be asking, how can I make myself competitive globally, and what opportunities exist outside the academia? Some students may also have financial concern, especially if you are a low budget family you have to begin to think, how do I fund my education and research, especially if your parents struggle to see you through the undergraduate program. It may be somehow irresponsible of you to then go back to them and say, I want to go for postgraduate again, when there are other siblings that need to go to school. So then you begin to think, oh, how can I fund this education and research? And how can I balance part-time work with my studies? Then there are socio-cultural questions. How do I manage societal expectation? For example, somebody graduated with an MBBS, DVM, BPharm, or some other degree now. People begin to call you doctor. Can you then begin to go back to the same society and say, oh, please, I need money again to go back to school? They will ask you, what's wrong with you? You just finished, you just become a doctor. You drain the whole community. Now you are coming back to ask for money again. What do you want to go and study again after becoming a doctor? And that title, BSc, DVM, MBBS, BDS, BPharm, or whatever, place some societal responsibility on you immediately too. Then how can I contribute to my community or nation? May also be a question in our mind. How do I maintain cultural identity and in an international academic environment? You also begin to think of networking and collaboration. How can I use this research opportunity to build a strong professional network? And how do I effectively collaborate with others? And then how can I leverage on technologies, the current set of technology? These days, there is a battle between should AI be used, should AI not be used, should it be accepted in research, should it not be accepted? How can I do effective data analysis, data recruitment, and all those things, and still make the best of both worlds? Then you may also think of, oh, how do I stay motivated during difficult time? Because I've seen a number of memes on postgraduate. You see, they say PhD journey, you see a straight line, but the real PhD journey, you see so many zigzag before you get to the end of the journey. And then how do you stay motivated during such difficult time? And finally, you can also be asking, how can I make my academic journey fulfilling? We've had postgraduate students who have had smooth relationship and finished well. We've also had a number of postgraduate students who abandoned the program midway or ran away from it completely. We've even had situations wherein a postgraduate program, a postgraduate student becomes a mentor case before you even finish the program. So there are so many things, aspirations, challenges, contextual realities that meets a postgraduate student along the journey. And so you need this resilience, you need resourcefulness, and you need adequate support, both from the community, academic community, your family, your immediate family if you are married, to navigate successfully the experience of a postgraduate program. So basically, those questions I've posed are the 20 nagging questions I can pick immediately. But we will be going through the remaining outline that I put there on the agenda. And I tell you, within the next 1 hour, we should finish quickly, and then we should have rooms for some questions. So in terms of supervisor-supervisee relationship, with all those questions, should the peer, when I mean the peer now, both the supervisor and the supervisee or postgraduate student, should they be burdened with additional questions? For example, the expectation questions, the ethics question, the mentorship questions. And sometimes, you know, in relationship, there are breakdowns. Even relationship within our body, the tongue and the teeth fight at times, and the teeth will bite the tongue. When there is this breakdown in relationship, how should we be managing it? And should the relationship in postgraduate training be enjoyed or endured? But I should quickly put a caveat here. There is no single global template for postgraduate administration. It may vary from species to species. The management of the postgraduate program is more important than following strictly a set of rules, like the law of the partial medius. So who is a supervisor? So this is just a brief definition, but there can be other form of definitions. An academic supervisor.
Hello, sir. And are you still on the title slide? Because that is what we are seeing here.
Oh, I've moved. You are not seeing the
I
slide
don't know if it
transition.
is. I don't know if it is the same with other audience. I'm still on the. Okay, now they are moving. Sorry for the interruption. You can continue. Yeah,
Okay.
it is okay now. Yes.
Let's see. I try to make it big in some of the presentation slide, and then it's not moving. Let me try again.
You can click on that icon on the right side, which looks like an inverted, that looks like a wine bottle, where you can increase and decrease. But there is an icon there at the bottom right that looks
Sorry,
like
is
a
it
wine.
moving now?
Just click on that icon, sir, on the bottom right.
Okay.
At the bottom right, it looks like a one. Yes, that one.
Yes, that's the one I click to make it slideshow.
Yeah, it is not on the slideshow.
Who is now? It's not on slideshow now.
Yes, sir.
On my side, it's on slideshow already.
Okay, but we can still
It is on slideshow right now.
Okay. Now, yeah, it is moving. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for the.
So, who is a supervisor? An academic supervisor is a member of faculty who offer guidance to one or more graduate students in a study program. And other names they use for it may be doctoral advisor, some call it advisor, some call it promoters, like in the Nordic countries, promoter, mentor, or so many other forms of name. And this person is expected to provide academic advice, some pastoral support, and help with the career and personal development of the candidate, referred to as the student here. And a supervisee can also be called a student. And this is a person who received guidance from an academic supervisor. In other terrain, like in part of Europe, they call it postgraduate student. In the US, they call it graduate student. At times may be called a candidate, may be called a student. And these are so many forms of names by which such an individual can be called. So can you see the next slide now? Please
I don't know
if you can see the next slide.
I don't know with others, but with me, I'm not seeing it, but I don't bother since I have.
Okay, let me just
moving
and
now.
increase the font. Okay. So what are the expectations from a supervisor? One, completing a PhD does not make you a supervisor. I can tell you. There are so many people with PhD and they may not be good supervisor. So you need other qualities apart from the fact that you are a doctoral degree holder or you've completed so many postgraduate training. An academic can meet a PhD student. The skill is enabling the completion or submission of a quality thesis. So the academic who is a supervisor must also have that capacity to be able to take from the start to finish. A good supervisor must also ensure that the student understand the beginning, that the beginning matters. For example, in most postgraduate programs, the failures start from the word go. If in the first year of the postgraduate program, a student had not even had a clarity on what he wants to do, it's most likely that that student is not going to finish within the required time. In some universities, if you go beyond that required time, the student will have to write a justification why his program should be extended, and the supervisor will also have to support that justification. And such a thing does not reflect positively on the supervisor too. So PhD students are also not slaves. They are not sexual partners. They are not underpaid research assistant or writer of your article. The supervisor needs to know that. You may use them in terms of helping in writing research article and all those things, but make it clear that this is in the process of building them also, especially those of them you see as the potential to become future academics. A PhD supervisor or a supervisor should also be able to assess student information literacy in the first month of their enrollment. For example, you've got a new candidate and the candidate wants to do A, B, C, D, E. One, as a supervisor, you should be able to assess, okay, does this student have capacity to do this? Do we have the facility to do it? If we don't have the facility, how do we meet the need? Can we find a way out of this? If the scope is too wide, how can we narrow it? So those information literacy, the supervisor should be able to assess it and then guide the student not to tread a path it cannot complete. In terms of assumptions, this is another big thing. At times, the supervisor assumes some things about the student. The student assumes some things about the supervisor. And this ultimately will lead to conflict down the line. So these assumptions need to be managed. If you have honest questions to ask the student, ask. If you think the student don't have capacity for some things and you want to be sure whether the student can do it or not, ask the student, don't assume. And a supervisor also must be able to do quality selection of potential examiners. You know that the ultimate success of this student depends on the set of examiner you selected to evaluate his work. Those examiners must be able to have thorough knowledge of the field and must be able to guide the student in case student need some additional work, must be able to add value to the work of the student. It must not be a punitive measure for the student. Maybe a student had offended the supervisor in one way and say, okay, I'll wait for you. When it comes to examination, I'll make sure that the examiner is selected, deal with you very well. That is not a role of a supervisor. Also, in terms of development of a clear and obvious SOC, SOC is a significant original contribution to knowledge. Within the scope of a PhD program, for example, a supervisor should be able to know and guide the student. What is the critical contribution you are making to the body of knowledge? It's not just because you want to publish so many articles. It's just not because you want to do ABCDE or you want to get your PhD so that you can be called doctor. What is the contribution you want to make? And this contribution doesn't have to be a new invention. It can be some deep questions that is yet unanswered in the field. The student may be providing that solution through the support of the supervisor, and must also be able to create a strong supervisory team. For example, if I'm a vet and an epidemiologist, and I know within that limit, and I have a student now who now want to do an economic analysis, and I think I don't have all the capacity to provide all the guidance to the student, what will stop me from looking for an economist or somebody with a degree in a PhD in economics who can add value to our work and then draw him in as a co-supervisor or draw him in as a collaborator? A supervisor should be in a position to do this. And also a supervisor should be able to differentiate between research article and a thesis. You know, there are so many forms of thesis for a PhD in particular. Some are by publications, some are by narrative research. So the supervisor must be able to guide the student to do both, because when you are writing a research article, there are some terms you use, but when you are preparing your full thesis, there are things that you need to avoid using. Otherwise, it will seem as if you plagiarize your work. And what are the expectations from a supervisee? I'll just be brief here. One, responsibility. A lot of the students, they shirk their responsibility. They don't own up to what they are doing. And then they begin to blame the supervisor for not doing it. You that want to take up a postgraduate program, you need to know that from the word go, it is my responsibility from the beginning to the end. My supervisor is just my helper. It's assisting me to achieve a goal. But it is not his responsibility either to write for me or to do ABCDE for me. Whatever he does for me is assistance in terms of making sure I start well and I finish well. You must also be willing and open to feedback, constructive criticism. For example, your supervisor tells you something, it is not a time to put up a defense immediately and say, this supervisor, this is how bad he is. He just rubbish everything I do all the time. Look critically at what he told you first and say, okay, is there something that he wants me to achieve? For easily, same with submitting a peer review publication. When you get the feedback from reviewers, the essence is to improve the quality of your work and to put the best out of the work you've done and not to put you down. You must also be engaging. For example, some students, they are what we call absentee students. They only come to see supervisor maybe when supervisor calls for them or when it's absolutely necessary that they cannot avoid it. No, don't be that. Be engaging. Ask your supervisor from time to time, relate with him, see him as a mini father or a mini mother to you during the study period. and be close in terms of close association, close interaction. If you have questions, ask him. Communicate well. You know, communicate regularly but in a respectful manner. For example, you can have a student wherein maybe around 10:30 midnight, he now send you a message. Sir, I've sent that thing to your email. I will need feedback by tomorrow. How do you expect the supervisor to be able to do that? Knowing that the supervisor may have a number of other things he will have to do. He has other responsibility to the society, to the academic community, to other postgraduate students. Then you are now drawing the rule for him. No, you cannot do that. It is wrong. Also, a student must be able to plan his work, especially with your supervisor, and to select a planned research topic that is appropriate and can be completed within the time limit you have. In fact, you should be able to draw a Gantt chart. If you have a 3-year program, don't use the whole 3 year in your Gantt chart. Put 2.5 years so that you have a window of about 6 months or 7 or 8 months to be able to make some adjustments and review these Gantt charts you've drawn for your program from time to time. So what are the roles? You know, at times we talk of supervisor-supervisee. We really never talk about the institution that brings them together. For example, you register in a university under a supervisor. You are the student now. The universities where you register in should be able to serve as a balancing act between the two of you, because this is a rallying point that brings the two of you together. So I'll quickly go through some issues that are related to the institution. One, institutions should be able to establish clear guidelines and policy for maybe conducting postgraduate program, for conflict resolution, some structured agreements that you sign between the two parties, if you are that type, must be able to also provide training and development. For example, universities should have something called an induction program for newly recruited lecturers. In that induction program, there are so many things you can talk about there. You can talk about academic literacy. You can talk about how to mentor students. You can talk about so many issues that may reduce conflict along and that may promote the career of the young lecturer also. Must also be able to provide training even for students. Students in the postgraduate program, okay, how will you transition from your postgraduate into the work life? What do you intend to do after this? You are starting your PhD program. How do you finish well? How do you avoid some pitfall that others are falling into? The university should be able to provide this. And professional and skill development. Maybe while you are doing your postgraduate program, some new skills are coming up that you see in the course of your program. The university should be able to support you to achieve such skill in the course of your PhD. Another thing is in terms of monitoring and evaluation. For example, opportunity for regular feedback mechanism should be part of a established protocol the university should have, supervisory committee if it's needed, and anonymous feedback channel if you need that in the course of your program. Also, in terms of supporting communication and collaboration, for example, the university should be able to create a framework that created opportunity for mediated discussion. For example, let's say you are having issues with your supervisor. Who can you reach out to? Maybe the HOD, if that opportunity is there. So this is part of the role of the institution where the supervisor and supervisee is. And such HOD should not take it as, okay, should not reduce the lecturer in the presence of the student. Maybe there's such a HOD will need to talk first with the lecturer, then get to hear from the student based on what the student wants, and then find opportunity to mediate issues between them. Also, in terms of shared tools, where there are tools maybe in another faculty and you need it in your department, the university should be able to create opportunity for you to use it either in another faculty or in another school. And networking opportunity is part of the role. This may be a bit small, but it's just one of such agreement. This is an MOU from a university like the University of Pretoria. Every new postgraduate student that is taking, there is this MOU that you just both read through as supervisor and supervisee and sign. The student role is listed there, then the supervisor role is listed there, and then both of them has this responsibility. And every time you meet, you have to put the date, put the milestone, the deadline, and you sign, both of you. So in this wise, it is easy to track the relationship between the student and the lecturer or the supervisor. Also, a part of the role of the institution is to ensure access to resources. For example, students need mental health resource, mental health support at times. In most cases, we avoid, we hardly talk about this. I've seen a situation wherein I was driving in a campus and a postgraduate student just walked into the center of the road unknowingly. And when I stopped and I told him, get into the car, and I took him to the office and I sat with him and I was now talking to this postgraduate student, he first began to cry. I said, no, you are an adult. You have your family and all those things. You shouldn't be crying. And then we talked and he now narrated his issue. His issue is something that should have been solved easily without much ado. But because nobody cared to listen to him, he ran into this difficulty and it was affecting him mentally. So adequate infrastructure is the role of the institution. It's not the role of the supervisor. It's not the role of the student. It's the role of the institution. And we as supervisors, we as academic community, we need to continually sing this burden to our administration, university administration. We need to provide this in order to maintain our quality, in order to maintain standard. I know that at times, most of the governments in Africa, they are recalcitrant, they hardly listen. But we need to keep talking about it. Maybe we'll be lucky at one time or the other. Financial aid, where is available, we need to be able to create this opportunity for the student. Promoting a positive research culture is part of the role of the academic institution. Ethical standard, inclusivity and diversity. For example, if you call yourself an academia, you cannot have all your postgraduate students only coming from maybe your ethnic tribe alone. Unless if there are no other tribe, if it's a monolithic country, that is okay. But if it's not a monolithic country, that should not be promoted. Then the institution should be able to call such lecturer and talk to him and say, you need to be a bit diverse and be inclusive. Don't only take male students as postgraduate students, take female also. Don't only do this also. Try to be a bit more inclusive and diverse in terms of what you do. Another thing is issue of mediation and conflict resolution. This is important. In most cases, when there are conflict between a supervisor and a supervisee, it typically goes bad when there is no mediation or no conflict resolution mechanism set in place by the institution. And then you see students abusing their supervisor. The supervisor is there to actually add goodwill to you. And now the issue went bad, and then it becomes issue that you begin to malign yourself, make libelous statements about yourself, and talk bad about one another, which is not supposed to be the case. So the university should have an ombudsman and a sort of a mediation process. Okay, let's say this issue happened, it can be resolved. It can be escalated to this, it can be escalated to it. If I can give you an example, because I mediated in one issue recently in one of the universities in South Africa. The first thing is that when a student had this huge complaint about these two supervisors, she went to the HOD to complain, and then the HOD talked to the two supervisors. The HOD called all of them to a meeting. They couldn't resolve it. Then the HOD escalated it to the deputy dean in charge of research and postgraduate training. And if it cannot be resolved at that level, it can be escalated to the ethics office of the university. So that is a structured mediation process. And so the appeal process is also there in case you are not, for example, in this case I talked about, the two supervisors still insisted they want to continue to supervise the student. The student said, no, but I don't have trust in the two of them again, because it seems as if they just want to make sure that I don't finish. And the student had really spent significant time in the program. And the student said, well, what they wanted me to do now at the point of submission, they did not tell me when I was running my field experiment. So now mentioning it now at the late stage, meaning that they want me to go back to the field after I've completed my work and I'm at the stage of submission. So it becomes an issue between them, and we are trying to find a way to resolve this issue. Such a thing can happen. But when there is ombudsman and there is formal appeal process, it can ease the tension and it can bring out solution to such a thing. Balancing power dynamics is also important. For example, We don't want a single supervisor or a supervisor. You can have a single supervisor on a program. That's not negative. But you don't want a single supervisor that can be a lord and master and say, if I rule that your life is finished, yeah, that means your life is finished. If I rule you will pass, that means you pass. If I rule you will fail. Nothing, nobody can change it, not even the vice chancellor. That is not right. The university should have those opportunities to be able to create a balanced power dynamics. Empowerment program is also important. Empower your supervisors, your lecturers. The university should be able to empower the lecturer to be competent in what they are doing. When they need additional role, when they need additional training, even if it's outside the country, the university should be looking for opportunities constantly to also improve its own academic staff so that they can provide the best. And in time of encouraging accountability, it's also very, very important. You know, accountability, and this is through performance metrics. For example, some universities have a rule, okay, within 2 years, if you don't finish a master's, as a supervisor, you should give us a reason why you cannot finish a master's in 2 years. If you don't finish a PhD within 3 years, you should be able to give us a reason why you can't do it. And for such performance metric is tied to some fund. For example, if you finish your master student in such university within 2 years, that academia will get some stipend for finishing the student early. But if you don't finish them within that time, you have to explain why you can't finish them and all those things. And in terms of additional money that comes to you, maybe for every publication you publish, there's some money that comes to you and all those things from the work. So, and then there need to be progress report and sanction for non-compliance. These are some of the things that need to be standard. Ethics and trust in academic supervision is also important. For example, there need to be mutual respect and sensitivity between the candidate and the academic mentor. And I know that at times youth may want to misbehave, and they tend to misbehave at times. The supervisor need to know that, okay, these are youth, they are going through the cycle wherein they think everything lay at their foothold. But at the same time, a corrective platform must be set wherein you should know that, okay, if you see me as your supervisor, you need to be able to listen to me, take instruction from me. It is not to enslave you, but to make your life better. And the student also need to know this and be sensitive to such things. Understanding ethical standard. For example, if you are doing biomedical work now, you know there are certain ethics you have to keep to. Like not revealing the identity of the persons you are interviewing, like keeping medical record of people private and all those things. And for practically every field, you have some set of ethical standards you need to adhere to. Also, clear expectations. You know, if at the beginning of the program, there is no clear expectation laid out, it may be misconstrued either by the supervisor or by the student. And then this will begin to lead to conflict down the line. So those clear expectations need to be set and reviewed from time to time. And if it cannot be met, for example, if your supervisor said, give me the next chapter in the next 4 weeks, and you are running 2 weeks already, you know you will not be able to meet that 4 weeks. Don't wait until one day before the end of the 4 weeks before you go back to him and say, sir, please, I know you gave me 4 weeks, but I have this, and this family challenge. Please, sir, can I have an extension of 1 or 2 weeks so that give me 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks? That's important. Show genuine interest and authenticity in the work from both parties. Encourage regular feedback and reflection is important. Create milestone and achievement. For example, when you create your Gantt chart now, you can time it, okay, by month so, by month so, by this time, by the end of the first year, I want to have achieved this. By the first quarter, second quarter of next year, I want to have achieved this. And keep looking at this and reviewing it, possibly print it and paste it on your wall as a student. It will guide you every time you wake up and you see that thing on your wall. You know you have some goal to achieve. Create a safe environment for open communication and engagement. This is very important. If there is a safe environment, the student will feel open with the supervisors. The supervisors also will feel open to relate to the student. So in terms of promoting student growth, it's also an important role that is expected, especially mainly from the supervisor side. You need to actively promote student career growth. For example, you can help them to get conferences. A number of them are still rookies. They've never been to conference, or they don't even know what conference look like. So conference attendance, if it's possible, such conference attendance can be used as networking opportunity. For example, I know of a supervisor. He said that any of his PhD students, when they're their third year of academics, he makes sure that they follow him to one international conference. And when he gets there, why he's doing it is he wants to use it to network for them. So when he gets there, he will look for the student, look for the researcher that is working in that area, and just hand the student over and say, oh, you know, Professor so, you see this guy, he had been working in ABCD. Indeed, he can tell you more about his work. We just leave them and move on and pick another student and introduce again. So through that, begin to create opportunities and networking for his PhD student. And this is one person I know had been very successful with getting postdoctoral position for most of his PhD students. As soon as they are finishing, they are most likely to get a postdoc position. So in terms of peer review and mentorship opportunity, even apart from the main work that the student is doing, if you see that the student has possibility of becoming an academia or researcher in the future, and you think you can engage him in other work you are doing as a lecturer, you can carry such students along and involve them in such thing. So let's look at a few global best practices in supervision. Supervisory practice, you should subject supervisory practices to regular peer review. For example, if you are supervising a student, you have your other colleagues within the university supervising student. If you see a lecturer always finishing a student on time, you can sit with him and say, oh boy, let's review what we are doing. What am I doing wrong here? Why is my student always late? One, external peer review is also important. You can maybe invite presentation, invite talk from external partner, or when you go out maybe for sabbatical and things like that, use that opportunity to review how they conduct their own postgraduate training. Establish clear expectation, I've talked about that before. Supportive environment, I've talked about it before. Encourage independence. You want to guide the student, but you don't want to lead the student by the nose. Otherwise, you'll be producing future poor lecturers. You want a lecturer that will be independent-minded, but at the same time can listen to instruction in improving his work. So you need to learn how to do that. So don't be the supervisor that will now write the book for the student or begin to tell the student, write A here, write B here, write C here. No, you need to be able to help the student to form his mind or her mind and to come up with some good work. Seek partnership and collaboration. This has to be constant. Every lecturer knows this. Even for your career growth, you need it. Maintain professionalism and ethics is important. Regular monitoring and feedback have been talked about. Cultural sensitivity and inclusivity, we talked about it. Leveraging technology and resources. It's strange that now, you know, we have internet, we have AI coming now on board. We have so many things. And how will you now see a lecturer saying today that, oh, no, I will not use those technologies. Indeed, I don't want to use internet all the time. Just print that paper and bring it for me all the time. We are not in that era again. If you want to, for the very old lecturer or for the very old professors who are very used to that, if that it is your supervisor and you come to that agreement much earlier, please do it by all means. But don't think that it is mandatory, that this is the standard. You must always print every time you want to bring every correction to me. The world had moved on. It's like you still say you want to be riding donkeys in this modern era. Everybody had moved to technology now. So we need to embrace it. Encourage continuous development, development program, professional development, academic development, career development, every form of development that you think you need to add to yourself, even as academia or as the student. And accountability, both ways, is important. So I just want us to look at a few testimonials based on some of the issues we've talked about now. I will show you a few good testimonials and also some bad testimonials. For example, this is a two quotes that I picked from some of the issues we are discussing. One, somebody said, similar thing happened in my PhD, but my supervisor did something exceptional. First, he bought me textbook to start reading since the field was entirely new to me. And both of us are reading and teaching the course. He insisted I must go abroad to present at conferences. Meaning expert must assess my work to accept his worthiness and give it a pass mark. He believes I'm doing the right thing. I must publish my research output in high impact journal and must be in the relevant field. So for me to go on an introduction seminar in the department, I presented first in Canada. When I returned, so this guy gave a very good account of his supervisor. So definitely we know that's a good testimonial. Let's look at another one. This is a professor. Recently, just December 3rd this year, he wrote this about one of his students. He called the student Big Boss. He said, oh, I signed off on the PhD thesis of this incredible student, Idris. He has 18 papers to his credit. 18 I said. Said he had 8 during his MPhil. The student definitely do MPhil under this man and then do a PhD. Has 10 papers during the MPhil and another 10 during the PhD tenure. So I had to break my leave and come out to Pizza Hut in my hood in order to have one with him. He want to have pizza with him. So this is another good example, and he showed himself and the student here with the gift that they gave to the student. So this is a good example. This is what we want to have. You know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line after your postgraduate supervision, you still want to maintain relationship and increase your network with your student. Let's look at some bad example. This is some of the things I picked also from online. So we have to pay hotel bill for member of the panel. You can also offer sex. Your supervisor is the devil's apprentice. Transport money inclusive. I decided not to have anything else to do with social universities. The day I saw people defending their masters and presenting cooler of rice, garden egg, crate of drinks, and all those things, we were told to pay 60K each for both entertainment. My husband was so frustrated by his supervisor that he abandoned his MBA. Student has to buy brand new suit for their supervisor, envelope filled with money and hotel bill, external supervisor fee. This is a chronic academic terrorism. You see, when you see something like this, it is discouraging. And this type of thing compromise the quality of postgraduate training that is now delivered. So, but let's not look at everything as negative, either from the supervisor or supervisory point of view. What are some of the challenges among African academia? Because these are real issues that will affect, even if you have the best of intention, you have these daunting challenges that we are fighting against. One, navigating and innovating with limited resources and opportunity while mentoring students. For example, a supervisor that is not well paid and he doesn't have opportunity for funding, and then the student has expectation of some allowances or some support from the supervisor. How is the supervisor going to do this, honestly? Or when the supervisor has too much workload, or when there is multi-channel, poor multi-channel communication. For example, the student cannot raise issue with maybe a higher authority, or the lecturer is having a beef with the HOD, or the department is having issue with the vice chancellor's office or the dean's office and all those things. When those multi-channel communication are cut off, it also affects supervision, limited institutional support, as we've outlined earlier. Power imbalances create a lot of issue. When there are conflict of interest, for example, if a man has to supervise his wife, you can imagine what you expect of such. Inadequate supervisory plan. So if the student himself is not adequately prepared, brain drain and staff shortage, and psychosocial and mental stress. For example, in recent time, we were discussing on the forum, and we talk about the issue of the increase in fuel price and all these things, and the salary does not correspondingly increase to that. So now, if for a lecturer now, you need to use maybe 40–50% of your salary to fuel your vehicle to go to campus every day. Now, how is the remaining money going to be enough to take care of your own family, to take care of your social cycles and all those things? And then, on top of that, if you now have a student that want to put any mental stress on you, you are likely to explode. We need to understand this. So these are real issues that the university system also need to begin to look at constantly. And the other socio-cultural factor that affects academic supervision styles. One, communication style. For example, if you are in an environment where younger people don't talk to older people directly, It will affect communication style. For example, in most of the European or the Western country, a student can call the supervisor by name. But we know this is hardly on African. You cannot just go to your supervisor and say, hey, call him by name and shake hand with him and everything. You know, it's not our style. Power distance also is also another issue that we need to look at. If the supervisor had made himself a demigod in such a way that the students are afraid to approach him, it can create some issue. Gender dynamics, you know, in some community, the women are not supposed to look at men straight in the face or something like that. And these are issues that can affect supervision. Attitude towards authority and criticism. If a student had already made up his mind, maybe based on what he heard about a lecturer, and said, this man cannot be good, can never deliver anything good to me. How is he going to benefit from such a lecturer? You already created an attitude towards him right from inception. Individualism versus collectivism. You know, in some community, individualism is promoted. Everybody do everything on his own. But in some community, collectivism is what is promoted. We do it as a group and all those things. So if you need to win yourself from either of that to be able to make the best of your academic career, you need to do it. Socio-economic factor, you know, you have to think of your research, or this, or that, and on top of that, you know, you don't even have money to transport yourself back home. How do you do? Expectation or supervision roles can also be locally ingrained. Work-life balance, we need to consider it seriously. And stereotypes and bias. For example, if you believe that, okay, oh, they told me people from this area cannot be brilliant. And so you already see anybody coming from such community with that viewpoint. Immediately that person comes, no matter how brilliant he is, you will not see anything good in him. And academic cultural priorities. You know, in some academic environment, oh, they said, okay, here, nobody graduate PhD less than 7 years. And you begin to use that as a systemic thing. It is not systemic. It is just those bias and socio-cultural factors that may affect academia. And we need to begin to look at such issue clearly. So as a final slide, I would just like to put these 5 key takeaways. I'm sure that the PowerPoint will be distributed to everybody, so you can use it and you can reuse it as you want. When we need to establish clear communication channel, it's important. It will help smooth relationship between the supervisor, supervisee, and the institution. We need to promote mutual respect and professionalism. This is absolutely important. And to set realistic goals and expectations right from the word go and review them from time to time, to support the career and personal development of both the supervisors and the supervisee. The supervisor will be the responsibility of the institution, and the supervisee that of the institution and the supervisor. And we need to encourage independence while providing guidance. I think those are 5 key takeaways that we cannot rule out. And as I mentioned earlier on, remember, no one-size-fits-all template in terms of academic supervision. It may vary in the environment where you find yourself and from time to time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Fasina, for this insightful talk right on time. In fact, I have made a list of some questions that I would like to ask, but I must say that you have covered everything, so I have to drop my questions down. Without further ado, I will open the floor for question and answers, please. If anyone has a question, you can, I prefer if you can raise your hand, please, or you can send a message in the chat box. I can read it to the speaker. I can see A.B. Dago. I don't know your title. A.B. Dago, please, you can go on and make your contributions or ask questions. Thank you. You can unmute yourself, please. Hello, A.B. Dago. Can you hear me, please? Yeah, you are
yes,
still on.
yes,
Okay,
Dr. Aminu Shitu. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Aminu Shitu, and thank you, Prof. Fasina. I really enjoy your very good presentation on relationship between supervisor and supervisee. My question is, what did you think from your experience when you have the initial, when you have a good relationship with your supervisor, and towards the end of the PhD, what did you think if the relationship went in a direction that maybe it's not how you started with your supervisor? What do you think can lead to that?
I don't know if the, yeah, you are asking about, yeah, probably asking about the progress report. So I don't know how the speaker wants to answer the question. Is it immediately, or you will take them down and answer them after the first 5 questions?
Yeah, I think we can pick a few questions and then answer them and then go to the next set of questions.
Okay, fine. The next person, Grumian Yilzem George.
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful, insightful presentation. So, sir, I really need your opinion about what some of us PhD students in Nigeria, especially in the academics, we know the nature of our pay in Nigeria, and most of the times access to grants is a little bit difficult, as it were. And then you're expected to do this research with your meager salary that hardly can even feed you for a month with your family. And so that actually have delayed some of us a lot. Just wrapping our head, we've been applying for grants and opportunities, and that has not actually been forthcoming. And time is going and expectations everywhere. So I don't know, with this kind of condition, what advice would you give people like us on how to go about very disturbing and worrisome circumstances in which we found ourselves? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. George. I haven't seen any hand raised. Okay, let me add one more to make them 3, Professor Fasina. I think, what advice could you offer? Because you cited an example with the postgraduate student that you met while you were driving on campus who almost ran mad. And I'm aware that in certain institutions, the professor's advancement. You mentioned that it is not everyone with a PhD that is qualified to supervise a graduate student. And some institutions have this guideline that your advancement next year depends on your performance in the past year. So the trend has to be going upward. We don't even want to see a flat top, a plateau. The graph of performance has to be going upward. So while we point an accusing finger on the student, we should also look at the supervisor himself. And of course, there are difficult supervisors, supervisors that are not approachable. I have seen someone like that in my environment. When he saw the supervisor, he started hiding himself. And I even asked him, how can you graduate if you are not interacting well with your supervisor? Is he a demon or what? And then he told me that he's not friendly. And then, well, that was the end of the discussion. So I think there is a need to advise the institutions if we can establish something like this, a center for conflict resolution between student and supervisor, and also because some supervisors don't give a damn. I'm already a professor, so nobody is going to assess me. But then the student will continue to be delayed, even some people doing a PhD for 6 years, which is unacceptable. And I see no reason why, even if you are self-funding yourself, you're out for a PhD, you should plan for sourcing money elsewhere. But why should it take you up to 6 years? And so there must be something wrong. And so I want you to also comment on this aspect, please. Thank you so much. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for these 3 very good questions. And they are very practical questions, let me say. But I will start with a good news. The student I talked about earlier on, it's good news to know that he's actually a deputy dean at the moment in a university in Rwanda. So he was able to go past that challenge after the talk. It was some difficult talk with the supervisor, but we also gave the student the necessary support. And ultimately, the student graduated, went on to do his PhD immediately. Initially, he said he will never attempt anything academic again. He went on to do his PhD. And now, as we speak, he's a deputy dean in a university in Rwanda. So that's about that. So let me go straight to the question. First, what do you think of when relationship goes from good to bad? What can lead to this? One, as I mentioned, if you listen to the presentation, a number of things may lead to relationship that goes from good to bad. Maybe the expectation shifted. What was original thought.
We can't hear Prof very well again. It's breaking here.
Yeah, that is the same with me. Hello, Prof. Yeah, okay, he's back. Hello, Prof.
Yes. You can hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
that was the switch from the internet from the cell phone back to the hotel internet.
Okay.
So as I was saying, so there can be a number of things that can cause such a relationship to go from good to bad. But this is where the conflict resolution mechanism is important. If you have it in place, there are still opportunity for mediation. At the end of the day, the first thing you need to know is that you don't want to leave a bad reputation by the time you are leaving the university with your supervisor. You and your supervisor should continue to become close. You should continue to maintain relationship. I know of supervisor and students who have maintained their relationship for more than 30, 35 years throughout the career life of the student that we talk of. The student even became a professor and still keep referring to the supervisor that supervised him. This is the type of relationship we should be building, not destroying relationship between us and our supervisors or between the supervisor and the student. So when there is an opportunity for conflict resolution, such a thing can be outlined. Okay, they can look at what is the issue, where are the relationship gone sour, what can be done to correct it, and then you make every effort to do that correction. But in some cases, in some few instances, the relationship may not be ameliorated. In that wise, the institution will then have to step in and look for an opportunity to resolve the case as best as it can, maybe by assigning additional supervisor or by moving the student away completely to Okay. So the second question, as I was saying, is about the issue of the PhD students or postgraduate students generally who could not or who are finding it difficult to access grants and to be able to manage the little resources they have between themselves, their families, and the work they need to do. Honestly, by all standards, supervision and postgraduate training should not be the burden of the student alone. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where funding becomes very difficult in a territory like ours. But in most cases abroad, indeed, when I first went for my master's abroad, and I mentioned that, oh, I came to sponsor myself by my own funding. Every student I met and I told that in the university could not believe it. They said it's not possible. How can you be doing postgraduate studies by yourself and be paying for everything yourself? They couldn't believe it. I said, for undergraduate, most of us do it by ourselves. They said, no, it's not possible, that we are not just telling them the truth. So as much as we know the reality of our society, that a percentage of burden will be rested on us, the supervisor also should be looking for ways and means to make the life more comfortable for the student. For example, if the supervisor also is able to win maybe some grant for some work and can find a way to accommodate some of the student work in his work, they can do it. Some university create opportunity for students to make additional money, maybe to supervise maybe undergraduate students as a research assistant or some teaching assistant or some lab assistant in the work, so that the postgraduate student can earn some money while doing his work, and this additional money can go towards his research. In some cases, in some cases, it may be that within the research work of the postgraduate of the supervisor, they design your own project now to fall within that. In that wise, if the supervisor has funding for his work, it can accommodate yours. This also places some responsibility on the university administration as much as ASU also, to continually engage the government on the need. I know that at a point in time, they talk about National Research Foundation or something like that for Nigeria, and we have it in place now. These are some of the issues that need to be discussed with the NRF in Nigeria, that, okay, apart from just giving grants to lecturers, to this, to that, in like we have in some other places, there need to be some funding available to the postgraduate student. For example, in South Africa, if you win NRF grant, you won't even want the university bursary, because the NRF grant is good enough to take care of you and to take care of your research, that you don't want the university grant. And for every NRF rated researcher in South Africa, the student who work under such researcher also have opportunity to benefit from additional fund. So there are so many models which we can begin to engage our research funding bodies in Nigeria to do. And we should not limit ourselves to only research funding within the country. I know seeking for research fund may be difficult at times, where we need to keep trying, both locally and internationally. If we get international research, I know that Ilorin, Dr. Odetokun's team, they got some grants recently by relationship with some external bodies. So such thing, we can create a platform like this and bring Dr. Odetokun and his team one day and say, come and present to us, how did you win this grant? Because what we want to see, we don't want to see it in just one university, we want to see it replicated all over. And I tell you, out there are so many research opportunities, but which we are not aware of or we are not adequately prepared for. And this is what caught us back in some instances. So we need to be realistic with that. And the third question is about offering advice to postgraduate students or advice institution in terms of resolving conflict. That was why, if you see the number of slides I use on talking about institution, it is about 6 or so slides. This is why I actually emphasize that where this is not existing in our university, we need to begin to create it intentionally. You know, at times we blame the student, we blame the supervisor, but we don't even think of the institution that brings them together. In most cases, the problem is the institution. If the institution don't have a framework, then you give everybody room to do whatever they like in terms of how they think they should implement things. And for example, if I'm a supervisor, I've not eaten since yesterday night or this morning, my children went to school and I'm still thinking in my head how I'm going to go and pay their school fees and this and that and all those things. And then you students brought in some issues to me and you are now insulting me. I will flare up on you, definitely. So these are some of the issues that are happening. So the institution also need to put in place a conflict resolution mechanism, an opportunity for people to be engaging an ombudsman system where people have a recourse. Either the lecturer felt offended or the student felt offended, everybody has opportunity for a recourse. And when there is a need for mediation, the mediation should be there. And then not only that, in terms of support, the university system, the polytechnics, this system, our tertiary institution system should be able to provide that support and feedback to the academia and to the student as well. So these are supposed to be ongoing process, and it should be reviewed again and again and again. And if our institution don't have it, you can share like this presentation with them and say you want to present it at the university. And when you present it in your department, you tell your HOD, please make sure they know at the faculty level. From there, it can get to your Senate, and then they can consider it, okay, we don't have this before, we need to create it. So it's a work for all of us to do. It's a whole of society approach through which you can get such a thing in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Fasina, for providing answers. I think I can read another one here in the text. Okay, the first one by Mohammed M. Manga. He said, a very excellent and highly insightful presentation. Thank you very much. Great efforts indeed. Can you please shed more light on the variations that comes with universities running PG programs for the first time, challenges of first-timer university? And then the second one was from Dr. Habibu Haliru. He said, thank you, Prof, for the excellent presentation. This topic is very interesting and timely, considering the situation of supervisor and supervisee relationships in our universities. I think you have already suggested the need for the development of guidelines for supervision for universities. Please kindly suggest an options for our universities to come up with these guidelines. Thanks. And I think you commented maybe partly on this second question. All right,
okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for these two good questions. Also, one, shedding light on variation that are on the universities that are new and are running postgraduate program for the first time. Indeed, such a university has opportunity to benefit maximally from the modern effort and from presentation like this, because you have opportunity to start well and to continue well. Some of the older universities also may have started very well in view of the facilities and resources that are available there. But in view of the changing needs, we need to continually change. For example, we talked about the issue of the before, like in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they will say you should type your work, you go and do those typewriter, the manual typewriter, and then you bring every sheet that is typed with that blue sheet that is put in between and everything. And then the correction will also follow that process. So then it takes a much longer time. At a point in time, it's the spiral bound copy you bring and they review and they give back to you with correction. At a point in time, we begin to transit into electronic document. At a point in time, some universities now don't even allow you to print your thesis or your dissertation again. They just say submit it electronically in PDF and in Microsoft Word copy, and that's it. So it's a form of transition. So in terms of a university just starting to run a postgraduate program, I will encourage that such university partner with the older university, or get some of the older university to co-supervise students from those new universities. You will gain from their wealth of experience. For example, let's say one of the new federal university established now, you partner with maybe an older colleague from ABU, or an older colleague from UNN, an older colleague from Sokoto, from Ibadan, or from some of these older universities. Even if that person is not your main supervisor, can be a co-supervisor. For example, especially if you are a PhD holder in one of the new university and you are supervising a PhD, why won't you use your own supervisor that supervise your work until you finish as a co-supervisor on that work? It may not be in your university. You just let the university know, for us to gain experience from those older universities, we want to do this and use it to benchmark our own program. One, then setting all those standards like memorandum of understanding, like the agreement, like some of these other documentation, you can then put them in place and say these are the guidelines through which we will do our own supervision. You can, if you search online, you get a lot of examples. For example, the one I displayed from the University of Pretoria is freely available online. If you search online, okay, MOU between postgraduate and student, our agreement between, you will see most of these documents online. Then you can adapt it to your own university situation, and you can benefit from it and use it to set the standard you want to use in your university. So, by this co-relationship and collaboration with older institutions may benefit new institutions in terms of setting standard and setting some baseline. Indeed, those older universities will even be able to tell you the pitfalls they've gone through easily, and you will be able to avoid those pitfalls without much stress. And then suggesting options for how to set some of those guidelines is some of these things I've mentioned now. Like if you search online, one, if you reach out to some of these institutions, you may even talk to some of those institutions and say, okay, maybe from your academic quality unit or so, we want you to talk to our university community. We want to set up this, but we want some form of communication. Even like this platform, we can decide to bring in one or two of those people who are in charge of academic quality in some of these other great institutions we see in Africa. Say, come talk to us. We want to benefit from this so that we can begin to think of how to set standard even in our university in terms of postgraduate supervision. I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. We still have more time. I think I can see Professor Nicholas Pilau. I believe that something must come out of Nicholas, either a question or a contribution. Hello, Professor Nicholas Pilau. Are you listening to me, please? Hello?
Yes, I'm right here, Dr. Aminishitu. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, please.
Yes, I was actually typing a question. I'm sorry I came in a bit late, but I enjoyed the question answer aspect from our prof. I was typing a question actually. In Nigerian universities, we run PhD programs with coursework, courses in entrepreneurship, courses in ICT, courses in various other fields. I want to ask Professor Fasina, with his vast experience, I see PhD as entirely a research endeavor. It's a philosophy based on research, especially PhD in life sciences. With Prof's experience, what does he have to say about running PhD programs with coursework in Nigerian universities? It distracts the candidate. It does not give them enough time to zero down on research. I want to hear his thought on that, please.
Professor Nicholas, I hope you are not mixing MPhil with MPhD. I know that in MPhil there are courseworks that are needed. I wonder if such exists for a PhD program.
It does for PhD.
Yeah, I want you to make this thing clear because Prof has not been in the country for 2 or 3 decades.
Yes. Dr. Aminu, thank you very much.
Dr. Ademola, yeah, please.
Yes, it exists now. We have coursework packages for our PhD programs. It's happening now in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
so we like
we only elsewhere it exists with MPhil programs because we believe that an MPhil is a transition, so you are transitioning, especially if you don't have excellent grades in master's program. So you are asked to do an MPhil, which is like a fresher to qualify you to go like a matriculation into a PhD program. So that's why I ask for this clarification. It is interesting to know that yes, it exists. So let the Prof comment on this. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Professor Nicholas. And this is a very practical question also because if it's a pity that you came in a bit late. I mentioned that there is no single template that is used for postgraduate program globally. There are variations. For example, when you talk of PhD with coursework, if you are in the US, in Canada, in India, in Denmark, you do coursework during the course of your PhD. In a number of the Nordic country, European country or so, you don't do coursework generally, or coursework are made optional for you. If you want to do it, you pick. If you don't want to do it, you don't do it, especially at the level of PhD. So, but also a number of universities have a research, primarily research PhD, and some have some form of variation in PhD where you can bend back and do some coursework or not do. So there is no single standard for determining how a PhD should run. But the only thing is that you need to weigh carefully. You know, as you said, PhD is a philosophy-based degree. So whatever we impinge on the quality of research that the candidate will do ultimately need to be put aside. That should be a basic. So a coursework should not become the main thing as to impact negatively on the research that the candidate is doing. And that's why in a number of the universities that do coursework, they will make sure that the coursework does not extend beyond the first year, so that the last 2 years is concentrated on doing the research alone. And even when such research or when such coursework is being brought on board, there should be variation on, okay, whether I want to take it as elective or I don't want to take it. For example, some of the issues you mentioned now, entrepreneurship, this and that, these are life skills. Maybe they want the PhD student to graduate with an opportunity to also have life skills in some areas. And this is why they introduce some of these concepts. So the concept may have been introduced with a good intention, but it needs to be made clear that even with the best of intention, you cannot make the coursework to now take such a big portion of the time as to impact negatively on the quality of research that the candidate will do. That is how I would put it. But I tell you, globally, there is no single template on whether there must be coursework or there must not be coursework. And that is why all options are open. There are PhD by research, there are PhD by comprehensive narration, and all those. Also, it depends and it varies on the different programs that is run globally.
Yeah,
that would be my answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. In fact, you repeated some things, and I personally don't like repetitions. And we still have much time. And I think, Prof, can I ask you, please, could you differentiate between thesis and dissertation?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So the difference between a thesis and a dissertation primarily is, in most cases, what a master's student does is a dissertation, and what a PhD candidate does is a thesis. That's what I know, because you know, before you can call anything everything, but there was definitely a distance. But in some other territory, a dissertation is given for a doctorate, and thesis is, you know, I think these are semantics depending on the territory where you are operating from. In some places, they say a dissertation is a research paper that requires to earn doctorate, but in some places, they say it only earns you a master's, and then you need to do a comprehensive PhD to earn a comprehensive thesis to earn a PhD. So I don't think there is really a clear-cut definition between them, and also between the different territory. For example, if you talk of the American system now, doctorate will be called dissertation, and bachelor and master's is called thesis. In the British environment, that's the European Union, bachelor's and master's is called dissertation. Thesis is the PhD. So it depends on the geography. So I don't think we should be bothered too much about that semantics, but we should rather think of complying with the requirement of the territory we found ourselves, and then making sure that we get the best of the program we are doing. That would be my own honest view.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Idris Ayodeji Aziz, Anatomy, University of Jos. Anything for us this morning? Dr. Idris Ayodeji Aziz, Anatomy Department, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Jos. Professor Yeah, hello. Anything you
Hello,
wanted
good morning.
Yeah, Dr.
Good
Aziz.
morning.
Thank you. Morning.
No, I have nothing more to contribute. Good.
All right. Yeah, you have something, but not much, as you said. All right.
So thank you, Prof.
All right. Professor Shoitan, do you have anything with respect to this presentation? I mean, question, answer, contribution.
Well, not at all. Professor Fasina has done a justice to everything.
All right. Yeah, Professor Dr. Odetokun has left. So I think we are rounding up now, and in the absence of any question.
Just a contribution, if it's okay.
Yeah, Professor Nicholas. Yeah, we still have like 5 minutes left. So.
Okay, yes. My question was answered, impressively, and I thank the Prof. This one is a contribution. The postgraduate programs in Federal University in Nigeria is not run like undergraduate program with a regulatory body. The undergraduate program is regulated by the National University Commission, and they come for quarterly accreditation of facilities, infrastructure, and manpower. And then they assess this university, evaluate if they are qualified to continue running this program. Unfortunately, the PG programs are just left to the universities. There are no standards to assess this program quarterly, whether they even have the requisite manpower and the infrastructure to continue the program. So lack of external regulation outside the universities make this program just at the universities, and the universities need money, so they will continue to run this program. Even when there is no requisite requirement, the requirement is not fulfilled to continue running the programs. You go to some universities, you find disgraceful postgraduate programs where there may be just a single staff or two in a department running a postgraduate program. So these abuses is a great disservice to the quality of postgraduate programs in Nigeria. How do we come into this? It is by virtue of our connections. Professor Fasina is highly vast. So we have done a lot of exchanges, a lot of relationships, a lot of consultancies with universities. In our various capacities, as we interact and exchange with Nigerian universities, let us find a way. This one has to do with conscience, perhaps. It's a conscience question. Since there is no external regulation, it's for us to talk to the conscience of vice chancellors and people managing postgraduate programs to do justices to these postgraduate programs, since there is no regulation at all. I don't know if it's clear what I'm saying.
Yeah, Professor Nicholas, very clear and true. Professor Fasina, do you have anything to add on this?
Actually, Professor Nicholas, is like you are part of the discussion we had earlier before you came in. We actually mentioned the issue of the internal and external peer review. A product can only be best when you subject it to peer review regularly. For example, like you said, the quality of the undergraduate program continue to be maintained because there are some form of regulation. So there's a benchmark below which, if you go, you know you'll be penalized as a university. For the postgraduate program also, even though there are differences between the different universities in terms of postgraduate training, there need to be a minimum benchmark. And then there need to be, it can be internal accreditation body within the university, it can be internal peer review process within the university, and it can be interdisciplinary or interdepartmental or interfaculties. So that we say, okay, when we look at this postgraduate training, if it falls below so and so standard, we will not approve it for this department. The department, you will then find out that the department will need to begin to think of collaboration, or begin to think of networking, or begin to think of bringing in the requisite number of resources needed to be able to maintain that standard. We cannot afford to just produce, because the quality of the postgraduate we produce ultimately determine the future of those universities. Because if you produce a poor quality set of postgraduate students, ultimately this becomes the next set of lecturers and professors and researchers in our institution. Then it tells us the future of institution we are looking at, because we cannot be there forever. We are there today. The next 10, 15, 20, 25 years, most of us will phase out of the university. The set of people you produce today, whether bad or good, will be replacing you largely. So the quality you put in them is what they will be producing when they replace you. So we really need to work on the quality of the postgraduate. It's the same thing like the issue of teacher. You know, at a point in time in this country, we only left the worst go to teacher training colleges, and then it begin to reflect on our children in primary and secondary school. Because then when you have the worst of us becoming teachers, then what do we expect of our children? They will teach the worst of the training to our children, and then those one will be the one we will come to battle with at the university. That's why we have a lot of inadequately prepared students coming into the university system these days. So the quality cannot afford to be compromised at any level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No more question. May I recognize Nurse Modupe Margaret? Hello, Modupe Margaret. Do you have any contribution to make on this supervisor-supervisee talk?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ma. Good morning.
Yeah, I think Prof have said it all, but the aspects of collaboration with external or international universities, at the moment I'm doing my master's with Charité, that this collaboration that Germany are looking at in Africa universities. One of my supervisors actually is coming from Africa, where they collaborate together. So they learn from international university because they have access to every modules, every information in the university that they can take from developed world and take it to the universities in Africa. I think I would say that a lot of lecturers should look out for that, because it's very, now the German government, you have 2 supervisors, one in your university, and then you look at another one from they call it Africa or any other low-income countries, so that they can learn. I think that is going on right now in the developed world, especially Germany is doing that. Maybe lecturers should look out for that. Like my second supervisor now is from South Africa.
All right, thank you so much for this contribution. I have read from some people that they need a copy of the slide. Yes, I have them, but you have to be a member of the AfriScience network to get those files. I hope, Dr. Grumian, you asked for this. Are you on our platforms?
No, I'm not, sir.
Why can't you join the AfriScience network so that you can get everything you want, including all? We have 21 webinars uploaded on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel, so that you can have access to all of them, including this one and the slides.
Okay, sir. I think I will do that too.
Send me an invitation on that number on the announcement. Have you seen that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please send me a request. Just introduce yourself briefly. I will add you on our platform. Then you will get this presentation. And I'm going to share it on the platform immediately after this meeting. Without any more questions or contributions, I will invite Professor Kehinde Shoitan for the vote of thanks and concluding statement. Thank you so much, Professor Fasina, and everyone for attending.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aminu Shitu. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AfriScience Network team, I would like to extend heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, a distinguished world-renowned professor, Professor Oludayo Fasina, for sharing his profound insights with us. He has thoroughly done justice to the topic, fostering excellence in supervisory relationships, expectations, ethics, and mentorship in African academia. Professor Fasina, your vast knowledge and practical wisdom have not only enlightened us, but have also inspired us to rethink and refine our roles as mentors, mentees. And there are several lessons to learn, not just for us as individuals, but also for our institutions. I also want to thank every participant for your active engagement and thoughtful contributions, and for your support to AfriScience Network. So a special appreciation also goes to the AfriScience Network team. And fortunately or coincidentally, The webinar presenter, Professor Fasina, is one of the admins, one of the AfriScience network team. But we still appreciate you. We appreciate every member of the team. Some have left for other important engagements. So as we conclude, I encourage us to carry on the lessons learned from today's webinar into our departments, units, senates, and the policymakers. So this webinar marks the end of AfriScience Network webinar series for the year 2024. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar scheduled for January 2025 by God's grace. And equally important topics like this one have been scheduled. So on behalf of AfriScience Network team, I wish everyone compliments of the season and a happy new year 2025 in advance. Wishing every one of us a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much. God bless.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Fasina and Professor Keitan for Shoitan Keinde for this closing remark. And thanks to everyone for attending. I wish you have a nice day and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. For
Daddy. Sai ka fara zuwa, mitin muke yi wallahi.